Hi folks, it's FPL General here recording another episode of my 59th minute FPL podcast. Recording on Tuesday, August 20th, so we're in between game weeks 2 and 3. So going to follow a similar structure to last week's podcast, start with a review of the game week, talk about my watch list, a couple of players I've added this week, a couple of players I've removed, take 4 or 5 questions from Twitter, which cover some of the main talking points this week, and then finish off with talking about the captaincy for the weekend and talking about my transfers as well. So I have made some early moves, which I very rarely do, but the FPL market is absolutely bonkers these days with so many active managers at the start of the season making transfers, driving prices up and down. So I was forced to act early, which I don't like doing, because if I waited, I was at risk of not getting my targets this week. So I'll talk about those at the end of the podcast. So there's no 59th minute shoutouts this week, so we're still waiting for the first one of the season. 2 game weeks gone, nobody has been hauled off in the dreaded 59th minute. The only notable mention this week goes to Sheffield United's Callum Robinson. I know quite a few people took a punt on him at the start of the season. Hasn't worked out. He went off injured after 56 minutes, so just shy of the 60-minute mark. So very frustrating for his owners, getting 1 point, and also probably needs to be transferred out now because of that injury. So moving into the review of Game Week 2, don't want to dwell on this too long because it wasn't great. I scored 41, which was bang on the average. The average was 41. The only players who got me points were Lucas Dean, who got 11 and went off with a slight injury worry, so hopefully he's going to be okay for Friday. Raheem Sterling, 6 points, got a yellow card again, which was frustrating. And Callum Wilson, my old foe, got his second assist of the season. So obviously happy to get that, but I'm still yet to experience a Callum Wilson goal in FPL, despite owning him. I'd say I've owned him at least 4 or 5 different times now over the last couple of seasons, and he's still never scored a goal for me. So surprise, he's one of the guys who's getting chopped this week. So anyone who does have him, you can thank me later when he scores against Man City. Watch him score against Man City now at the weekend to wipe out my Zinchenko clean sheet. It's just written in the stars, and he'll do his little salute celebration as well, just to rub it in. As I said, those 3 were the only players who brought in any points for me, so a lot of disappointments across the board. First captaincy blank of the season in Salah. I know a lot of people suffered the same fate there. Had a very good chance that you would expect him to put away, which was frustrating. Disappointing performances again from Fraser, Perez and Jota. Very disappointing, those guys, over the first 2 game weeks. Had high hopes for all 3 of them going into the season. And double Liverpool Defense again. Adrian, man, what a nightmare. Costing me and costing a lot of people 2 clean sheets. Absolute clanger of a clearance hitting Danny Ings. So very, very frustrating there. At least though, I think a lot of people are panicking now getting rid of Liverpool defenders, but if you take away that massive mistake, it was 2 clean sheets and completely different narrative there then. So I'm happy enough at the moment I'm not in a rush to move away from double Liverpool defence. Yes, they've got Arsenal this weekend, which is not ideal. I don't really, I would expect Arsenal to score given, the attacking players that they have. But after that, I think for Liverpool, I think it's Burnley and Newcastle then, if memory serves me correctly. So on paper, 2 very good fixtures after Arsenal for clean sheets. So I'm happy enough to ride it out for a little bit longer. The double Liverpool defence. Nick Pope was my goalkeeper. Conceded twice, but still managed to get 3 points. That's all you can ask for from your 4.5 million goalkeeper. Most goalkeepers in that scenario would probably only get 1 or 2 points, but Pope gets 3, and every point counts. I think he got 7 saves against Arsenal. He went up for a corner at the end of the game too, which got me very excited. More excited than it should have. I just had visions of Pope leaping like a salmon and sticking a header into the top corner in the last minute to for one of those legendary FPL moments, but it wasn't to be. But it was good to see him in the box. He's not just a goalkeeper, he's a striker as well, so that's a bonus. Talking about bonus, he was very close again to getting a bonus. I think he was 4th. So the top 3 guys got bonus points. I think Pope was in 4th, so he almost sneaked a bonus point as well, despite conceding 2 goals. So again, very happy with that pick, start of the season, and hopefully I'll be able to write him out for 38 game weeks, and he'll hopefully get around 150 points. So Pope is going nowhere. I have to talk about my bench. I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat as me. The new darling of FPL, John Lundstrom, 4 million, 14 points, sitting as my sub number 1. Not bitter about it whatsoever, because I never once considered starting him this week. It would have been different if I was 50-50 between Lundstrom and somebody else going into the game week, but never once did I consider starting him, so it can't be bitter about those points. Just happy to own him now. I think he's gone up to 4.1, so got myself a good asset there, hopefully for the season. Watching Sheffield United on Sunday, very impressed by Lundstrom. Aside from the goal, I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch. So I think, I think he should be pretty safe in that starting 11. Now I know there was a lot of doubts. Even a lot of Sheffield United fans had doubts about him going into the season and even going into game week 2. But I think given that performance from what I seen at the weekend, to me he looks pretty safe. So as I say, just happy to have him, and he's an option. Any week he's got a decent fixture at home. I think you can just play him, and he could get you attacking returns as well as a clean sheet. So he's a little gem. So hopefully he keeps his place. Right, that's enough about game week 2. Hopefully game week 3 will be much better. I knew going into game week 2 that was going to happen. It so often happens in FPL. If game week 1 is high scoring, the next game week brings you back down to earth. So I was fully expecting a quiet game week 2. So hopefully game week 3 we'll have another big one now. Moving on to my watch list now. So again, this is something I update each week after I've watched every game I want to watch and watching the highlights and looking at stats and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk about 5 players I've added to the watch list this week and 5 players I've removed as well. So this is something I'll try and do every week, maybe 5 added and 5 removed. Later in the season it gets smaller, so maybe 3 I've added and 3 I've removed. But to begin with, the guys who impressed me in game week 2 and who are now on my radar, the young kid Todd Cantwell at Norwich, 4.5 million midfielder, 2 assists. He's posting some very good underlying stats as well. So I think he could. I don't want to say he's the best 4.5 million midfielder yet, but it looks like he definitely could be if he keeps his place in that team, which looks like he will because of the guy Hernandez having some kind of accident at home, falling down the stairs or something like that, and did his knee and needs surgery. So it looks like Cantwell should be safe, and given how well he's played in the first 2 games, I think he will be safe. So very good option. I think anyone who's on a wild card, Cantwell's the 4.5 million midfielder I'd go for. Another guy who was very impressive at the weekend, Ceballos at Arsenal. This was the first time I've seen this guy play. He's on loan from Real Madrid as far as I know. 5.6 million now. He's gone up 0.1 since the weekend, and it's no surprise. He got 2 assists in the game, taking a lot of set pieces, getting on the ball as often as possible, lots of touches in the final third, and just probably one of the best debuts I've ever seen from a player in the Premier League. He was just outstanding in that game. So definitely on my radar. I do have a few worries though. The main worry is Emery. We know Emery is very unpredictable in his team lineups, and he's got lots of options there in midfield. The likes of Xhaka. I don't think Xhaka played the weekend. Torreira didn't start either, I don't think. Ozil hasn't played yet. So there's lots of options there, and because he's a lone player, it just puts that plants that seed of doubt in my mind as well, that maybe he's more likely to be rested than others. But going on the weekend's performance, he should be in that starting 11 week in, week out. He's top class. So for me, it's just a wait and see on Ceballos. The fixtures are tough enough for Arsenal the next couple of games as well. So I'm happy enough just to wait on him, stick him on the watch list, and watch him closely over the next game or 2. But definitely promising signs here. He could be a budget gem this season. Another possible budget gem at Chelsea, Mason Mount, 6 million. He impressed big time in that Leicester game. Probably the best player on the pitch in my opinion. Definitely in a Chelsea shirt anyway. What I like about Mount is a couple of things. I like the fact that he's played 90 minutes in the first 2 games. That tells me that Lampard is a big fan. Lampard had him at Derby last season as well, so there's definitely something there between the two of them. I definitely think Lampard, wants him in the team every week. I also like the fact that he was commanding all of the set pieces, corners and indirect free kicks as well. So there's lots of assist potential there. Obviously, he took his goal very well, pressed high, and a great finish when he nicked it off. Who was it? Ndidi, I think, made the mistake. But yeah, Mason Mount, 6 million. I think he's again, if I was on wildcard this week, I think he'd be in there. I think he's the best of the Chelsea options now in attack. So definitely one to keep an eye on as well. Great fixtures for Chelsea next couple of weeks as well, so it could be worth getting on him now. A defender now that I've added to the watch list. Everton have been churning out the clean sheets. I think I read somewhere today that they've kept 10 clean sheets in their last 13 home games. I need to double check that stat, but very impressive. Whatever the figures are, they've been churning out clean sheets. It's hard to get your head around, because I've always, and I know a lot of people as well, I've always associated with Marco Silva teams struggling to keep clean sheets, and they've completely flipped that on its head now, and they're so solid, especially at home. So I'm very happy I went with Lucas Dean in game week 1. Hopefully he's a season keeper. But another one that's caught my eye is Yerry Mena. He had a very frustrating season last season with injury. Only got a handful of games. Now that Zuma's gone back to Chelsea, he's made the centre back place his own, alongside Michael Keane. What I like about Mena is he seems to be getting doing well in the bonus. He got 3 bonus game week 1, and he got 1 bonus in game week 2. So when Everton are keeping clean sheets, Mena is performing very well in that sense, and he's a huge goal threat. We know that especially from his international record. I think he got 3 or 4 goals for Colombia in the World Cup last year. So it's, part of me, I did consider double Everton defence in game week 1, but it was Coleman I was looking at rather than Mena. But I definitely do think, Everton still have great fixtures. I think for people who are losing faith in Liverpool, a lot of people are looking at maybe Emerson as a defender or Man United defenders, but I think you should include Mena in your thoughts as well if you are looking for a new defender. Last one I'll talk about here for the watch list, added to the watch list this week, Sadio Mane. I've already got 3 Liverpool players. I've got Trent, I've got Robertson, I've got Salah, and I'm pretty happy with those 3 for the moment. I usually don't add players to the watch list, if I've already got 3 players from that player's team, but I've made an exception for Mane this week. I just get the feeling that he could go very close to matching Salah again this season. And there's a million price difference, but I don't feel there is 1 million difference in them at the minute. Watching, admittedly I didn't watch 90 minutes of the Liverpool game at the weekend, but watching the highlights, what impressed me most about Mane was not his goal. Yes, it was a great goal. We know he can score goals, but it was how much he was creating. Last season he only got 3 assists, which is absolutely ridiculous, playing in that Liverpool team just to get 3 assists. I'm pretty sure if I played on the left wing for Liverpool, as awful as I am, I would still manage to get more than 3 assists, given just the quality of players that are around me. So I fully expect Mane to get a lot more assists than he did last season. He got the assist for Firmino's goal. He created a few other very good chances as well. He created a very good chance for Salah, so that would have been another assist if Salah had finished that one. So I really like Mane. I've got a question about him later, so I'll come back to him. A couple of players that I have removed from the watch list now. I remove players from the watch list if they've got an injury, if they're out of form, if their team's not looking good. So a variety of reasons really. Kiko Femenia is the first one. Quite simply, Watford don't look like keeping any clean sheets, so no interest there. Lucas Moura I've removed as well. Don't like the fact he was benched in game week 2, even though he got his goal. Any given week he could be a substitute, which I don't want for my FPL player, so he's out the window for me now. Wilfred Zaha, Palace were absolutely dreadful at the weekend. Probably the worst team performance I've seen this season in the league. So got 0 interest in Crystal Palace, 0 interest in Wilfred Zaha for the moment. Watching him, attitude doesn't look good. He looks, he's always looked like an angry man, to be fair, but watching him in that Sheffield United game, he was giving those scary eyes to a lot of the Sheffield United defenders that were kicking him, and I actually feared for them. I thought he was just going to absolutely go berserk. at one point. So looking at him at the weekend, to me, feels like a red card waiting to happen. We know over the seasons as well, he gets quite a lot of yellow cards. He doesn't take the kicks very well, gets frustrated and ends up kicking out himself. So no interest in Zaha, no interest in Palace until they show signs of improvement. Another one I've removed out of rage as a United fan is Paul Pogba after he missed another penalty. I mean, his record is absolutely... I think I seen a stat on Sky Sports last night that I think his penalty success rate is something like 36%. It's one of the lowest in Premier League history. I think Juan Pablo Angel is the worst, if I remember correctly. So, Pogba, Rashford, who is the penalty taker? Solskjaer was asked after the game, what's the story with penalties? And he basically said Rashford and Pogba are both designated penalty takers. He didn't specifically say that they're the only two, so there could be others as well. But I mean, Rashford should just be the penalty taker. He's far better at them. Scored last week. Very frustrating. We would have had 3 points last night if Rashford took that penalty and scored it. So very frustrating as a fan. And Pogba, I don't really want him as an FPL player if he's unlikely to be on penalties, which I think it is unlikely now after he missed another one. So no interest in Pogba. Much more interested in Rashford or Martial when it comes to Man United attackers. Last one I've removed this week, Jamie Vardy, just not justifying his price tag at the moment. He's about 9 million. He's been very disappointing in the first 2 game weeks. He does have 2 better fixtures coming up, so patience could be rewarded for anyone who does have him. But I'm definitely not looking to bring him in anytime soon. So he's gone from my watch list for the time being. Moving into some questions now from Twitter. Thanks to all who sent them in. I've picked out 5 of the best ones. First one is from Tom Jeffrey. Tom asks, if I was wildcarding in the next few weeks, would I replace Salah with Mane? Without having given this too much thought, I think my answer is probably yes. I'll talk about my transfer soon, but I came very close to activating my wildcard on Sunday night and on Monday night after the United game. I had a quick play around with a wildcard squad just to see what it would look like if I did do it. And Mane was in it at the expense of Salah just to free up that 1 million for elsewhere. I think the midfield I had in that wildcard draft was something like Sterling, De Bruyne, Mane, Martial and Mason Mount. So it was a power 5 in midfield. So I think if I was wildcarding this week, that's the kind of midfield setup I'd be looking at. And Salah just fell out of that because of budget reasons. I think Mane's an excellent option. I think a lot of people, whether it's this week on a wildcard or whenever the wildcard does come for the rest of us, that will be a question we'll be asking ourselves. No matter what happens in the next couple of games, I think Salah versus Mane, just like last season, I think we're going to be asking that question all season. So I really do like Mane. And I just have this gut feeling that he's the one I would rather have at the minute. But again, that could all change. Salah could go out and bang a hat-trick against Arsenal, Mane blanks, and then the tables are completely flipped again. So I think whichever one you've got, I think you just trust them for the time being and maybe give it another couple of weeks to make a more finalised call on those two for the season. Next question is from Daryl B. Good question here. Is getting on Pookie chasing points? So Pookie is one of the most transferred in players this week. No surprise after scoring 4 goals in his opening 2 games. Is it chasing points? Part of it probably is, but I think it's justified given from what I've seen anyway. I didn't watch 90 minutes against Newcastle, but I did watch 90 minutes of Liverpool-Norwich in Gameweek 1, and right away I just thought that's a guy I want in my FPL team this season. He just looks the real deal. Looks like a classy striker who could easily score upwards of 15 plus goals easy, given what he's done last season. I just like the way Norwich build everything towards him. And looking at his underlying stats, he's posting really good stats in opening 2 games as well, even though one of them was a tough fixture against Liverpool. So part of it obviously is chasing points. I think transferring in a player who's done well in the previous few weeks is always chasing points, but you're hoping that them points are going to continue trickling in. And I do just get that feeling that Pookie could be this season's Jimenez. that value striker that you just put in and you just leave for the rest of the season, hopefully. And I've got him. I've got him in this week. He's one of my transfers. He's replacing Callum Wilson. The worry, I guess, the counter argument for Pookie is fixtures. I think it's Chelsea next, then West Ham away, and Man City. So not ideal when it's Chelsea and City in the next 3. But he showed against Liverpool he can score against anyone. And Chelsea haven't exactly been watertight. I think 5 goals conceded in the first 2 games. So Pookie can definitely get something against Chelsea. West Ham, I never trust them defensively, so I can see him getting something there. Man City, you don't mind a blank there because you expect most players to blank against City. I just want to get on him now because I feel like he's a player I'm going to want anyway in a couple of weeks' time, and I don't want to pay 7.1, 7.2 when I think I paid 6.7 for him this week. So it's just one of those. Basically, it's just quite simple. It's eye test. I watched him. I want him, and now I've got him. No overthinking required. If you don't want them because of the fixtures, that's completely justified as well. And who knows, he could go on blank the next couple of games. It just remains to be seen. But for me, I'm in the camp of wanting him now rather than getting him for paying more for him later. Next question is from FPL Spam. Spam asks, who is the best replacement for Ryan Fraser? I think the best replacement for Ryan Fraser, if you can afford it, is Martial. There's probably a 0.2 million price difference there now, so you're probably going to need some money in the bank, or maybe you're going to have to make 2 transfers to do that. But I think as a direct swap, Fraser to Martial just makes sense. Martial's playing up front for United, 2 goals in 2 games, great fixtures coming up. Again, it's not one to overthink. You just get Martial. He's a great asset. He's great price. Just get him. Forget about it. It's really annoying me this week. I can't get him basically, so I prioritise De Bruyne over Martial this week. I'm revealing all my transfers here before I get to the transfer section of the podcast, but it's fine. Martial, he's right up there with one of the players I want most, but it came down to, do I want him more or do I want De Bruyne more? And I just feel I want De Bruyne more at this point, and hopefully then I'll be able to get Martial sooner rather than later. So again, you can't have them all unless you wildcard, and I'm just going to have to accept going without Martial for the next game or 2. And hopefully he stays quiet. One of the most frustrating things last night, I put a tweet up. I lost. Me and my wife were doing a head-to-head league this season. She beat me in Gameweek 1, and we went into the United game last night. I was 5 points clear, and she had Martial, and of course scored, and she beat me again. So she's 6-0 up in the league now, and it's going to take a lot to claw that back. So that makes things worse. Not owning Martial, knowing that she owns him, and every time he scores, it hurts me in the head-to-head league. So yeah, I think Martial's the best replacement for Fraser. Question from Oliver. Oliver asks, could you evaluate Trossard at Brighton? There's actually, I hope you can't hear them, there's actually a lot of seagulls outside my window here when I'm trying to do the podcast, making lots of noise. Maybe it's a sign that I should be getting a few seagulls in this week, or maybe not. Trossard, I did add him to my watch list this week as well after a very impressive performance at the weekend. Scored a great goal, had a great goal disallowed as well. So on another day, it would have been a brace if it wasn't for a VAR offside call. Really like the look at Trossard, but I do have worries about not him. It's like Ceballos as well. It's the manager, Potter. We know from the past he rotates a lot. We've seen it in game week 1. Trossard didn't start game week 1, so maybe that's a sign of things to come. Maybe Trossard will miss out in certain fixtures for tactical reasons. So that puts me off him. Until I see him maybe start 4, 5, 6 games consecutively, I'm happy to wait and watch. But if he is going to play every week, he looks really good. Last question I'll tackle is from FPL Cash. FPL Cash, if you've got any spare cash, can you send some my way, please, for my transfers? I always seem to be short of cash when I'm looking to make moves. Cash asks, is Sterling a good enough set and forget captain for the next 7 to 8 game weeks? City don't play a top 6 time anytime soon. So yeah, I had a quick look at City's fixtures here, and Cash is right. The next 7 to 8 fixtures are superb for Man City. I think the only real tricky one on paper is Everton away. I think that's around game week 7, I think it was. So I do think Sterling is a set and forget captain. It's something I may end up doing myself. Just sticking the armband on him now for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 game weeks, and just hope he just keeps playing the way he's playing, and obviously hopefully he doesn't get benched by the bald fraud. But yeah, I think it's a good. It could be a good strategy. You just stick it on Sterling, and you don't even need to worry about it. I think if I was going away on a 2-month holiday today and I wasn't going to have any internet access for 2 months, that's what I would do. Give the armband to Salah in my bus team and just leave it there for the next 2 months. It's something I may end up doing. I think there's a couple of fixtures. I think Salah plays Newcastle at some point. I think it's at home, so it's going to be hard not to captain Salah in that one. But definitely Sterling, set and forget captain. Nothing wrong with that, I feel. I'll finish off now by talking about captaincy for the weekend, and also just talk through my transfers and why I've done them. Captaincy, first of all, I put a poll on Twitter this morning. I put 4 options for captaincy. I put Sterling, I put Kane, I put Salah, and I put De Bruyne. So at the time of recording, there's been about 5,000 votes on that. Sterling came out on top with 46%. Kane was in second with 36%. I actually thought, when I put the tweet up, I thought Kane would come out on top in that poll, but it's probably because there's probably more people voting on Twitter that own Sterling and maybe don't own Kane, so that probably does fluctuate the poll a little bit. Usually when I put up those tweets, I say forget about who you own, who is the best captain, but I forgot to do that today, so that probably has a little effect on the poll there as well. So Sterling did come out on top with 46, Kane 36, Salah got just 11%, which is understandable when he's playing Arsenal, and De Bruyne got just 7%, again understandable when people find it very hard to trust De Bruyne with captaincy, especially me after doing it last season and then he went down injured. So I'm not going to do that again anytime soon. I don't want to break him for everybody else, let alone myself. So yeah, I think it's a straight shootout this week for captaincy between Kane and Sterling. I'll be on Sterling because I don't have Kane. Easy choice against Bournemouth. I expect City to score at least 3 or 4 in that game against Bournemouth, so Sterling's an easy choice. Kane at home to Newcastle, again, I think if you have him, it's an easy choice, but I think if you've got both, if you've got Sterling and Kane, then you've got a bit of a headache this week. Just look what Teemu Pukki did against Newcastle. So what could Harry Kane do? But then is Harry Kane as good as Teemu Pukki is the big question. But yeah, I think if I was on Kane, if I had Kane this week, I'd be strongly considering him for the armband. I think if you've got him and you don't captain him at home to Newcastle, what's the point owning him at all then? So again, I think the biggest decision for captaincy this week is people who own both Sterling and Kane. Right, my transfers. So as I said, this is a rare podcast where I'm able to tell you exactly what I've done, because usually I keep my transfers until Friday night. But as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, the FPL market is absolutely bonkers in the early part of the season. I don't like making early transfers, but I was forced to do so this week. So I've done a -4. I've got rid of Wilson for Pukki. I've got rid of Perez for Super John McGinn. And I've got rid of Ryan Fraser for the Ginger Prince, Kevin De Bruyne. So really these transfers were driven by De Bruyne. I watched the City game at the weekend and I put out a tweet. I said, there's nothing worse than watching De Bruyne in full flow when he's not in your FPL team. And I just decided there and then I'm not going to watch another Man City game without having him. So he comes straight in this week. He was my number one priority over the likes of Martial and these kind of players that I also want. So De Bruyne came in. Pukki came in for Wilson. Wilson and Fraser are both gone. They play Man City next. Fraser's been very disappointing, so he's an easy switch. It's easy to sell him. I think a lot of people will do that this week. Wilson, Wilson is a player really. If you keep him long term, you will get the benefits. And he has got 2 assists the first 2 game weeks, so it's not as if he's been blanking. Really, I think a lot of people will keep Wilson even though he plays City. I think long term Wilson is still an excellent option, but quite simply he just doesn't score goals when he's in my team. So I think I'm just going to cut ties and let everyone else enjoy the goals. As I said, watch him score against City at the weekend now. But again, Wilson had to go really to free up cash to get De Bruyne. So Pukki comes in. I think Pukki could easily match Wilson this season in terms of FPL points. So I don't mind making that switch. Perez left. So basically to get De Bruyne and Pukki, I had to free up 0.9 million. So I had two choices. I could have got rid of a Liverpool defender, which I didn't really want to do, particularly with those two fixtures coming up after the Arsenal game. I'm happy to stick with them for the time being. So the next option was Perez, and that was an easy one for me because, I was tweeting during the summer that I wasn't keen on him, and he really kept finding his way into my drafts because of his price. He's very conveniently priced at 6.5 million. There was nobody else around his price that I really liked. So for team structure reasons, he was just a nice, piece of the jigsaw, the last piece of the jigsaw almost to go in there in midfield. And just watching him, he's been disappointing in FPL terms. He's not 100% settled in that Leicester setup yet. He's been taken off early in both games, which I don't like. He did look much better in the second half against Chelsea. On another day he would have got on the end of Vardy's cross come shot, and it would be a different story then if he scored. Maybe I wouldn't be selling him this week, but I fully expect him to punish me as well. It's one of those. This is one of those weeks where the players you sell, there's a good chance they'll punish you. I think Perez plays Sheffield United, I think, this weekend. So if he punishes me, I can take it, because at the end of the day, I didn't really want them game week 1. He only really went in there because of convenience. So I don't really mind if he hurts me, because I don't really want him long term anyway. Maybe I'll come back to him in a couple of weeks' time if he starts banging in the goals. But I would much prefer have being able to get Pukki and De Bruyne. I don't mind having to lose Perez. Much easier to lose Perez than a Liverpool defender for me this week. So I've brought in McGinn. I had exactly 5.6 million to replace Perez. So it was either McGinn or Ceballos, and for the reasons I mentioned, I've got some doubts over Ceballos. On the flip side, John McGinn is 100% nailed in the team. He's got better fixtures than Ceballos, and I just like his shoot on sight policy. When he gets the ball, he has a pop. It doesn't matter where he is. So he's going to score goals. Great record last season as well. So I'm hopeful that McGinn will be a nice little, a bit of a differential for the next couple of weeks, and hopefully he delivers in those nice fixtures. So looking at my team now for game week 3, I'm much happier. Looking at the likes of McGinn, De Bruyne, and Pukki, rather than looking at Fraser and Wilson against City, and Perez just annoying me looking at him. So -4 going into game week 3. I mentioned I was close to wildcarding. I just felt in the end the -4 was a better play for me this week. I went into the season, not with a plan of when to play the wildcard, but I did go into the season hoping to hold on to it a little bit longer than usual. In the past I've probably averaged around maybe game week 4 or 5 when I've played it, but I'm hoping to be able to keep it a little bit longer this season. I would just like more information. 2 weeks is not a lot of information. People are getting very excited after just 2 game weeks, and yes, it's proven in the past. A lot of people play a wild card early game week 3 and they're very successful, and I think a lot of people who do play it this week will be very successful as well. But for me, it just didn't feel right. I'm pretty happy with my squad really overall. I'm happy with my goalkeeper Pope. I'm happy I've got Lundstrom. All those little things kind of contributed to me maybe just holding on to it that little bit longer. In the end, looking at the wildcard, I felt that I would only really be playing it to get Martial and maybe a United defender and maybe Mason Mount as well. So overall, I don't really think I would have been changing too much. It wouldn't have been a complete overhaul of my team. So in the end, with a wildcard, you always know when it feels right for your own team. And for me, it just didn't feel right this week. But I do think those who are wildcarding this week will do well. Obviously, if they pick the right player. So the only wildcard advice I give to people is it's up to yourself. You'll know if it's right or wrong for your team this week, next week, whenever. So don't listen to what others are doing. don't not play it because I'm not playing it. Don't play it because you see other managers playing it. Do it because you want to play it, or that you feel that it's right. And that's the only advice I would give. It's a team by team basis, and it's completely up to you. Before I wrap up, a couple of things to mention. FPLgeneral.com, there is 8 match reports on the website now from Gameweek 2. Chelsea and Man United will be added hopefully today, if not tomorrow. So they're match reports from season ticket holders who actually go and attend the game. Some really good information in those. It really makes you think differently. It makes you take off your FPL glasses almost when you're reading them. It's good to hear from actual fans who are watching the team week in, week out. So check them out at FPLgeneral.com. I'll be doing them every week over the course of the season. If you enjoyed this podcast, as always, please hit retweet, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a review. If you're on iTunes, it helps me get the podcast out there a little bit more. If you want to hear more content from me every week, if you want to get 2 or 3 more podcasts each week, check out patreon.com/FPL General. You'll find a link to that on my Twitter page. I'm recording an episode of Fantasy Weekly tonight. James is away on holiday, so I'm looking forward to recording with FPL Dave. FPL Dave on Twitter. Give him a follow. FPL_Dave. Dave is a fellow. He lives in Glasgow like myself. He does a very good FPL stream on Twitch. I tuned in to last week's stream and I did a lot of laughing watching him. He's a funny guy, so I'm looking forward to doing a podcast with Dave tonight. He'll probably end up doing a better job than Tongan Loftus and taking his job. Hopefully Tongan Loftus is listening to this podcast in Croatia and he hears that little dig. But yeah, we're recording tonight, so Wednesday at 2 p.m, the Fantasy Weekly podcast should be available for you as well if you want to listen to that one. As always, I'll be taking part in the Grand Weekend tournament on Fantasy Bet this weekend. Fantasy Bet is a daily fantasy website with new tournaments every weekend. So this weekend, it's like playing a free hit in FPL basically. You can pick a team just for Game Week 3, £5.50 to enter a team, and there's a sweet £2,500 up for grabs in that one. So if you're playing, as always, it is 18 plus and begambleaware.org. That's it for this week's podcast, folks. Enjoy the rest of your week and good luck in Game Week 3. I'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode. Cheerio.